Hello everyone, welcome to Kalico-K and our 5th stitch in our series of 9. These are little mini stitches and they're to celebrate Easter. So this one's on a yellowy cream coloured square, 3.5 inch felt square, and this one's all about an Easter egg hunt. So I made 2 little templates here, they're just paper templates, and I'm going to cut some egg shapes out of those and then they're going to go onto the felt. We don't want that piece of fabric now. And I'm doing various different colours. I think I've got some different fabrics and things, but these are the kind of colour palettes that I'm going to think about. And I also found some ribbons that might be quite fun, and probably buttons, and I found a lovely little ribbon with Easter egg hunt on it. So I thought, right, that's going to be the banner. So several little egg shapes. There's a plain green, there's a yellow with a flower pattern on it, and I cut a piece of lace because I'm going to overlay the lace on that one, I think, so that the colours shine through but they're not obvious. And then that one is just plain, and then this little one's a little yellow spotty job. So the plain one I don't think I'm going to do too much with. I'm just going to start it off in that corner and I'm going to join it to the felt using French knots. So I'm picking out a pale lavendery kind of thread, and I'm also going to pick out a sort of sea green colour because I want to French knot in the centres of these flowers. So the first ones I'm going to do will be the lavender one, so I'm going to just pop a pin in the bottom end of this because I'm not stitching down the bottom here because that will be held on by another egg. So I'm just going to do a lock stitch in behind here. So it's just an over stitch, couple of over stitches there just to stop your thread from coming out, and then I'm going to come up through the middle of that first flower. Now French knots, they're very easy to do, but they demand you to be good at tension. So 1, 2, 3, 4 around your needle. You can do 3, I normally do 4, and then you pull that needle down tight. You pull the end of the needle back almost to where you came out originally, and then you just push that needle back through, and that gives you a perfect little French knot. So I'm going to do that through the centres of some of these flowers, not all of them, but some of them, and just to secure the egg to the felt. That's all it's doing really, and it doesn't need to be, they don't need to be completely regimented. Depends on your pattern, on the fabrics of course. If you've got, you know, quite a regimented pattern, then obviously you can do that, but this one's quite a random one, so I'm not putting them regulated distance apart. I'm just using those centres that I come across and letting those knots secure my fabric. So the guys down here I'm just going to do in blue. I might just do that one though. But it's not a difficult stitch to do. You'll find we've got a playlist called Embroidery Tutorials, and if you haven't looked at any of the other stitches, I'll tell you about it again. And what I've done is put all of the stitches that I've used, I've done hooped tutorials. They're very quick and they're all on there for you. So I'm going to go ahead and do the green one, and then we'll look at the next egg. So there's our first egg, and it's just secured with some French knots in the centres of the flowers. Now the second egg that I want to put on is this double layered one. So I cut the bottom egg out. You might have some sound effects in the background. It'll be my dog chewing on a ball. Yeah, so I cut the base layer out slightly bigger, and then I cut the lace the same size as that one, so I used the actual template. So I'm going to stitch this on using a running stitch. I'm going to go all the way around the edge, and I'm using this lovely bright pink because I'm going to use this little piece of ribbon here to make a centre band, and probably using some buttons as well, I think. So, locking stitch on the back, and then I'm just going to come up a little way in from the edge, because the edge is going to fray slightly because obviously I've cut through lace. So I'm going to use reasonably big stitches and just go all the way around the edge so that it creates a detail. Sorry, my dog's decided to be a clown dog today, so she's putting on a floor show behind me now. I'm sure you'll meet her at some point in one of the videos. But for the time being, she's behind me. Or under my feet at times as well. She does know that she's not supposed to come anywhere near the camera. So round we go, and normally she just goes to sleep when I'm doing this because it's quite boring, but she's decided she's going to join in. So there we go, all the way around the edge, and this is such a lovely easy stitch to use. It's one of the very first stitches that you learn when you learn to sew. It's just in and out and in and out, and if you're using a long needle you can actually run the stitches along the needle, so you do several in one go and cheat. But obviously you'll be doing this nice and slowly, whereas I'm doing it fast. So there you go, just attached nicely, and I'm just going to do a little lock stitch there just to hold the tension, because I'm going to come back down here and attach our lovely little pink ribbon. But I'm going to attach the pink ribbon using a herringbone stitch. So if you've never done a herringbone stitch, it's a little bit like a kind of wonky cross stitch. So to do a herringbone stitch, you come up, actually I'm going to take that pin out because it'd be in the way, and then you come on a quite a long diagonal, back in, and then you come back out quite near where you've been. So you come out just a little way back, and then you come right the way across, but then you're going to go back out behind the stitch you've just done. So you come on a long diagonal and then back on yourself, and then another long diagonal. So you're making a lattice type stitch, and the trick is to try and keep where you came out there, where you went in there, when you come out there, that should be level. That gives you a good herringbone. Most of this is going to be hidden under a button, but it's a good stitch to know. And then back you go again. So can you see it's a pretty stitch. I like herringbone stitch. I've got a very thick needle, it's having to go through quite a lot of layers here. So there we go, and we'll just finish up over here at the edge of there. So that's our herringbone stitch. So while you've got the needle still threaded up with the pink cotton, I'm going to just come in through the middle here, because I'm going to stitch these two buttons. So I've got a little pale pink button and a really nice big bright flower button. So I'm going to come up through both of the holes in those buttons and come back down there. So I want it to be fairly straight, a little bit more central. When you're putting buttons on, if they don't end up in exactly the right place to start off with, you can just move them after the first stitch and then use the second stitch to attach. So there we go, simple as that. One button adornment done. So that's that egg done. And the next one I'm going to do will be the green egg. I think I'm going to put the green egg over here. That's why I didn't worry too much about doing the French knots down the bottom here, because this green egg's going to go over the top. And then I cut myself a little piece of green ribbon and a little piece of green rickrack. Now rickrack has been around for donkey's years, and I remember all my clothes when I was a child having rickrack on them. It was very popular in the 50s and 60s. So I'm going to use a purple, I think. Yes, I will. And that contrasts quite nicely with the green. So for the rickrack, I'm going to just use a very small running stitch to attach that. And that's quite a quick stitch to do, so I'm not going to do many. It's quite quick to attach. I've just realised I haven't got my glasses on. I do that so often. So I'm going to do a one up, try and stay in the centre line. Obviously you can pay much more attention to the one you do. Take your time, put some music on, just enjoy the process. So I'm just doing little tiny gem stitches here, so they just lock it into place. And I cut the edges of the rickrack on a slight diagonal, so it just looks as if it goes around the egg. And it does fray, don't worry too much about it. You could, if you wanted to, if you were doing this, you know, with maybe more details, you could tuck it under. But I haven't worried too much about edges with these, because they're going to be on a panel, and they might be in a frame, or it might end up as a wall hanging. I haven't yet completely decided. And then this one I'm going to chain stitch. I love chain stitch. It's one of my favourite stitches. So I'm just going to come up on an end here, and then chain stitch is once you've come up, you then go back in where you came from, come up a bit further along, make sure that your thread is looped around your stitch, and then you go back in, come out again, keeping that loop around the needle, and back in and out again, and we'll only need a few stitches to go across this egg because it's not a great stretch. This is such a lovely stitch. You can do lettering with it, you can join things together with it. It's just such a nice stitch. I just love it. There we go. And then when you're finishing off, you don't go inside, you go outside, and you just lock that stitch. Whoops, lock that stitch off. So there's our third egg on, secured. So just lock stitch that off. And then our last egg is a little, whoops, wrong way up, is a little yellow egg, and I thought that could just sit in the corner over there. And I've got a little velvet ribbon, and I've got a little button. So I'm going to, what stitch shall I do for that one? Cross stitch. Let's do a cross stitch. I haven't done one of those on here. So I'm going to use a green, just contrast with the yellow, but it'll go with that green there. And I'm going to overlap that a little bit more. So let's put a lock stitch in the back here, and we'll come up. Now there's a few ways you can do cross stitch, but one of the easiest is just to do diagonals and then come back. So you do a diagonal and then a straight down. I'm doing this upside down. And a diagonal and then straight down. And a diagonal, straight down again. One more. Will we get one more in there? Yeah, I think we might, just about. Okay, we're just going to go off the edge a little bit here. Done them slightly bigger than I would normally. And then you come back and you do a diagonal in the opposite direction, where you come in where your stitch ended at the bottom there, or top of the egg, and then you come back out at the other stitch, and that forms your cross. So again, there'll be tutorials on this. If you can't find them, give me a day or two and they will be there, because I'm doing them in groups. So as I get 3 or 4 stitches, I then add them together and pop them in a video. So there we go. So I've also got this little yellow flower button, and it's got 4 stitch holes. So what I'm going to do is mimic the cross stitch and just set that on with a little cross, and that just links the two that just links the two together quite, oh, what's the matter with me today, quite nicely, and it holds the top half of the egg on. So there we go. So we'll just lock that one off. We've got one more thing to do, and that is to put the little pink banner on and decide where it's going to go. So I think what we'll do is maybe we'll just put it across the bottom there, in the middle, oh, maybe in the middle. Yeah, let's do that. And rather than stitching this on all the way around, because it's got writing on it and I don't want to obliterate the writing, I'm going to just do 3 little French knots just to hold it in place. So I don't want to do anything heavy. I'm just going to pop a pin in and keep it in one place while I just do the first one. And you know how to do French knots by now because we did them right at the beginning. So you just come up. I'm going to come up in that corner. I'm going to wrap my thread round and I'm going to push right back down and in. Take that pin out because it's in the way. And voila, one little French knot. Voila. And then I'm going to do another one here in the middle. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Pull the needle back down, push it through. There's my second one. And then I'm going to come right along to this end and I'm going to put a third one in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right back down to your fabric and pull through. And then I'm just going to lock it off and we've finished that one. So there you go. There's a little Easter hunt, an Easter egg hunt especially. So I hope you've enjoyed that. It's not a difficult one to do and it's just a bit of fun and some nice colours, so you can pick colours that you like. And there endeth that one. So I'll look forward to seeing you again at the next stitch, and take care and thank you very much for joining us.